Hey, everybody, and welcome to Comics and Cinema. I'm your host, Alex Klein, and here we are at the end of all things, though I think that's a line from a very different movie than the movie we're going to be talking about today, which is Halloween Ends. And in order to break this film down, we've got two very special guests, Jalen and Anthony. Welcome, guys. Glad to have you here. Oh, Jalen and Michael.
This is more Michael than the movie.
Wow. Oh, out of the gate. I don't know. How long is it? We are a minute in and shots have already been fired at Halloween Ends. I am very excited to break this movie down with you guys. I saw it in theaters on Thursday night. It was not a packed theater. There were probably 15 other people in the movie, but I enjoyed it when I saw it the first time. I got a chance to watch it a second time, and some of my opinions dropped a little bit. But when I invited both of you on, the opinions got even louder and possibly in the other direction. So before we start breaking this movie down, first off, spoilers for this film. If you have not seen it, pause this, come back, or if you don't care about the spoilers, and there really aren't too many, I mean, kind of says it in the title, but feel free to check us out. Keep hanging on, and we will start with our overall thoughts. So, Jalen, we will start with you up at the top. What did you think of Halloween Ends?
I did not like it at all. It's sad when I like Halloween Kills better than this movie.
Wow.
And Halloween Kills isn't that great either.
Yeah, I remember because we had both of you on last year for the Halloween Kills episode, and there was not as much upsetness after that movie. I mean, we did talk about how that movie was a shock at the very end, especially that that Michael didn't die, right? You got the entire town shooting and stabbing him, and somehow he still gets away. And then they went and did this. So, okay. Anthony, what about you?
Yeah, this movie was a dumpster fire. I mean, it was just all over the place. And it's not even that I didn't like it. I just didn't even think it was a good movie. Like, there was just so much about it that it was like, what? Why was this the direction that they chose to go in? And I don't want to say cash grab, but oof.
Yeah, that's an interesting piece we'll probably need to talk about too, because I don't remember what the situation was last year with day and date release of this film. I can't remember if they put it out at the exact, because Peacock existed last year, didn't it?
Yeah, it was the same. It was day and date.
It was okay. Yeah. Okay.
And
so yeah,
I think it was more just COVID related last year. I think COVID was just spiking in the fall, and so they're like, well, we still want people to watch this movie, so we'll put it out on Peacock as well. And then apparently wanted to do that again.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? They made a decent amount of money. The opening weekend, I think there was a lot of people went and saw it. Thursday night previews, I think it got like 5 million, which is a lot for opening night. But then they projected it was going to get 50 million for the weekend, and it only ended up getting, I think it was 41 million. So it came in under projections. And it also came in a little shorter than Halloween Kills. I think opening weekend of Halloween Kills was a little bit higher than this one, which sort of makes sense, I guess. I mean, some people were saying, oh, it's because, it's on Peacock as well. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't both of you guys watch it straight on Peacock?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, and there we go. So maybe more people thought, I guess you had the diehards who were able to go see it on Thursday, and then all of the reviews came out, and everyone else said, well, we'll just watch it on Peacock. We don't need to get into this movie. But yeah, so this is the one thing I will say, and I do actually have a lot of positive things to say about this movie. I've got some negative things to say as well. Overall, I thought it was an ending to this franchise, which they clearly wanted it to be, and in a way they were successful at that. But it did not go the way that I certainly was expecting it to go. There was a lot of things that were way out of left field. And part of that, I think, is not a good thing at all. But then the other part of it was I'm in a movie-going experience in the theater, and I was telling my cousin this, and he was making fun of me for it. But I said my jaw physically dropped to the floor multiple times during this movie, whether it was like, oh, my God, this thing is happening, or oh my god, this thing is happening. So in a weird way, it was an interesting cinema experience. So we'll start there though, which was the first jaw-dropping event that I had, which was maybe your guys's too, which is the opening of this film. So this film takes place, or at least it opens right at the same time as Halloween Kills. So it's that same 2019 Halloween night, but we're looking at a completely different situation. So we're still in Haddonfield. It's the same street, I guess. It's all of it. I think Haddonfield's just one long street, if I know right. But
it's like Nashville. It's just one street.
It was a huge house, though. This was like another side of town or something. A super rich family has a guy over to babysit their son so they can go to a party. And this kid, whose name is Corey, played by Rohan Campbell, who I don't know what he's been in before. I can certainly check, but I was like, who is this guy? And he plays this super nice kid. He clearly has got some college ambitions, but we get to this really funny scene with the little kid he's babysitting who says something like, I'm not gonna, take a look. I'm not listening to some ugly ass babysitter, I think is what he said. And I
ugly ass boy babysitter too.
Boy babysitter. And I was like, that's kind of what I was thinking. This kid, like, they made him look like an absolute nerd. And I was like, man, this kid's just kind of getting beat up. But we get to a point where the younger kid tries to play a prank on him. We also get a great line though, where he says the boogeyman's going to get you, and he says, no, he only gets babysitters. And I was like, this kid's smart, but
he knows what Michael Myers does.
he clearly was in talks with Michael, because this whole thing got planned from at some point, because they're connected. And so he gets locked in the closet at the top floor, and he's screaming to get out. And it just so happens that the minute the parents arrive home, he kicks the door open, the door hits the kid, and the kid falls 3 stories down, neck snap, blood everywhere. My jaw was on the floor. In a good way. I was not expecting that at all.
I'm glad that kid died.
Okay, yeah. In a way, part of me, I don't know, is that a bad thing? That kid was.
I mean, he was annoying. So
he was a bad kid. But I'm just sitting there going like, what is this movie? I was like, what is this? Michael's not even here. And then it just, cuts to the opening of the film. And so we'll start there, because like I said, that was I'm not joking you. I literally went when I watched it, because I did not believe they were going to do that. Like, this kid dies immediately. And now we've got this kid who I was like, what's going to happen to him? So he basically murdered this kid, but he didn't mean to do it. Jalen, we'll start with you. What did you think of the opening?
Well, even before that started, I kind of got taken out of the movie with the opening song to it. It was too upbeat. And I'm like, this isn't a Halloween movie. Like, what is happening? So that kind of took me out. But this opening, I had a lot of thoughts going on. Like, one, what a poor design of a house if you open a door and you could just fall over the banister. Like, how close is this door to this banister?
There's no room between where it opens. It's a perfect symmetry.
That was issue number one. And then this is going to sound really bad because a child just died, but I busted out laughing because he bounced. Like when he fell, I'm like, I don't know if they didn't have the camera angle correct for this dummy that fell, but it bounced, and that just made me laugh because I'm like, I like that you're referring to it as happen.
It at that point. It's probably best.
Well, I doubt they
crash
threw a real
dummy
child.
That fell from the top.
Yeah, the crash dummy. Like, I don't know if the mattress was too, I don't know, something on that floor. But I was just like, what is happening? Like, I don't think a body would really bounce up and down, but I don't know, maybe they do.
Hey, I do not know the answer to that question.
So I was laughing already, and I'm like, oh, I'm a horrible person laughing about a child I just died.
Wow. Two completely different experiences in that moment. And now that I'm thinking back too, they did a really good job of the editing for it, because the scene is that he opens the door and hits the kid. You don't really see what happens, but then the next scene is at the ground level and the parents walk in and he just comes out of nowhere down onto the ground, almost like Daredevil did in that last episode of She-Hulk. Just out of nowhere drops. Anthony, what did you think of this opening?
I was taken out of it as soon as they did the recap for it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I assume that you saw it in theaters as well. I assume it wasn't it was only on Peacock type deal. But like, how many movies do you know that you go into in the third, and they have to recap it like that?
Yeah, what was it? It was like it was through the news, right?
Something, but yeah, I mean, either way, it was like, okay, you don't really. I mean, I guess you need to know what happens before, but you don't really need to. Like, just all the clips of the Lori's house and all this. I was just like, all right, well, it can't be that good of a movie if you have to tell everyone what's happened before. But I don't know. That was just a nitpick. Yeah, I mean, that kid was annoying. That was a very strong door to not give in after being kicked multiple times. Too many stairs to climb in that house for sure. And yeah, like you guys said, weird design. Just the whole house was weird. One thing that, and I don't know if you guys have even thought about it, or maybe it's just completely wrong, but my wife said, she goes, do you think Michael threw the kid over the banister? Like, that Michael was at the house? Or do you think it was, he accidentally kicked the door? And I was like, and I didn't even think to or care to go back.
I was gonna say, at this point, you're like, honestly,
I don't know.
Yeah, she was like, she's at one point during the movie, because he's getting accused and all this, and she was like, well, do you think he did it, or do you think Michael did it? I go, I don't think Michael was there, but I don't care.
Michael was like, I'm going to prove this kid wrong that I don't murder children.
Yeah,
right.
Just toss him over. Okay.
What I thought was interesting, and it was something, it was easier to see on a second viewing, but in the first, I will say there were multiple times where I was just visibly confused while I was watching it, because I was trying to do mental gymnastics with Corey of like, okay, what was it that drove him to do X, Y, and Z? Because there's a scene in that beginning opener where he goes to the fridge to get a drink and he grabs a beer, but he like looks at it and then puts it back and grabs chocolate milk. And I was like, oh, he's a good kid at heart. And I liked, though, the transformation that he takes. And I think, to your wife's point, almost kind of was Michael that pushed him in a sense, because I feel like it was that moment that he kind of began his transformation. But it was completely out of his control at the same time, because he's, the whole town is now against him, right? He's been arrested. And I think he gets off. I don't think he anything happens. It's not that the charges were dropped, but I'm trying to remember if it doesn't even matter,
because it didn't it go 4 years in the future?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He's taken off in a cop car, and then it's 4 years in the future. So yeah, they didn't really say like,
they didn't say like if he served time or anything, but it was essentially like he didn't get the sentence that the parents probably wanted, which would have been murder, but he didn't murder him. But it's like just that,
at least
stigma.
the mom, yeah.
And he's now this pariah in the town. And that's where I was like, okay, again, I can see maybe where the writers, David Gordon Green and them are thinking like, okay, let's have this like full circle moment of, the Strodes have been in this life cycle battle with Michael Myers. What happens if we introduced another character who joins that cycle of like death and hatred sort of thing? But to me, that should have been what the last movie was about. Like, they should have done that in Halloween Kills. That would have made things a little more interesting, I think. And they threw this in at the last minute, which was really weird. And you're right. Now that I'm thinking about it, Anthony, the scene you're talking about is right after the opening, which is Laurie narrating the book she's writing as the clips come up. And it was a clip show. And it's funny because I was going to tell Lisa, I was like, oh, we should watch this movie. She hasn't seen Halloween Kills. And I was like, I'll let you know if you need to watch Halloween Kills. And when that came up, I was like, yeah, she probably doesn't need to see Halloween Kills. Like they hit all the highlights. We're good. We're at a good spot. I did like, I don't know if you guys noticed this, I liked the opening where the pumpkins are exploding through the other, like each pumpkin grows into a bigger pumpkin. And I think there's a piece of that that's trying to say, the poison that is Michael Myers has fully seeped into the town, and it's just like the evil is mutating. It's getting bigger and bigger, which is the definition of Corey. Again, this should have been in the last movie. This is not something you just toss in to say, hey, this is that sort of thing didn't happen in Return of the King. To make another Lord of the Rings reference, there wasn't some surprise hobbit that shows up in that movie to save the day.
He's the Catwoman of the Halloween franchise.
Yeah,
Catwoman's thrown into the Dark Knight Rises for absolutely no reason.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys this. This is what I'm going to just keep asking these questions, because these are all things I had during the movie. So, Jalen, we'll start with you. What did you think of this 4-year time jump? because we get, and I'd completely forgotten about it because I did not rewatch Halloween Kills, that the mom died, Judy Greer, who was an absolute gem in those movies and honestly had one of the best scenes in this franchise in the first one, right? Where she's and she says, gotcha, and gets to I loved that bit. And I forgot, I was like, oh, that's right, she dies. But we have no grieving in this movie. They just skip 4 years ahead. The daughter's completely fine, which I was like, I don't know about that. And now somehow Laurie is even happier. And so did you kind of feel that same way?
Yeah, I didn't like how they just basically never really mentioned Judy Greer. Right. I mean,
they showed a picture of her.
Good enough.
It's fine.
They
the one of her head on the floor with the blood.
Yeah.
They
couldn't pay her enough money to have her face appear in this movie. Well, because at the end of Halloween Kills, it's is she really dead? Is she not dead? You don't really know if she survived that attack or not. Apparently
I don't think they knew, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. But so, I mean, I guess it was a surprise to me that she was dead and there was no grieving of her. And that, they're all just happy and okay. And they're like, oh, Michael Myers hasn't been around. We're good now. I'm like, no, that's a lot of trauma to go through to just be okay. Not that, there's a, certain amount of time you have to grieve or anything like that, but it just felt too rushed to me.
And there's a lot of horror in that family of everything all three of them went through in those first two movies to have none of that carry. I was curious as to why, why does she never look behind her while she's walking or get jittery if something a car passes by? They don't show any of that. It's she was just maybe she grieved every single day for 2 years but I would have liked to have seen a little bit of that. I think it would have helped and it would have made it a little better, but I think maybe at the same time, the reason they didn't do that is because of the choices she ends up making in her relationships that don't really add up to the experiences that she's been a part of. But Anthony, did you feel that same way?
Yeah. One thing that I don't understand is, okay, so Halloween, Michael's in prison, right? He's locked up, because that was the one where they go to interview him, right?
Yeah.
And then they show up at her house. Okay, so he's in prison. Obviously, he gets out. In prison, and she's living in a fortress, a secluded cabin with booby traps and locks and weapons all over the place while he's locked up. And then he gets out, everything that happens in Halloween Kills. And then he's just missing. And she's like, yeah, I'm just going to move into a house down the street.
Yeah.
Right.
A normal house. It's why are you living you're a recluse in your own safe house while he's locked up? But the moment he's not, and he's just out there, maybe dead, maybe not. And you're I'm just going to buy the house on the corner. It doesn't need a privacy fence. I'm fine. What was that thought process?
Again, I feel like that could have easily and probably was explained during that 4-year gap of her overcoming something, because she says something I don't let fear run my life anymore. And it's yeah, but just like you said, who Michael Myers is. If you don't find the body, he's still alive. I get you wanting to have your freedom and a new house, but show us as an audience, show us that transformation, because it just goes from super paranoid to everything's fine. But again, if that gets us scenes where she's got the pumpkin juice and she throws it down and gets all excited, that was awesome. I loved that. So I was you know what, I'm glad to see her doing that, but at the same time I still was it just felt so out of character for her just from what she'd been through. So it almost felt like Jamie Lee Curtis in a sense was did you guys see Everything Everywhere All at Once at all?
No.
I have not yet. No.
Okay. There's just some new movies that she's been doing where she's a lot. I mean, I guess Knives Out too, where she's got much more fun personality. I mean, overall, she's had a fun personality, but in these Halloween movies, she's very serious. And I wonder if she was let me have a little bit of fun in this last movie. It's going to be my last one. I want to go out with a bang sort of thing. But again, that's us speculating. They should have told us.
I hope we're going to get a 12 seasons of, it's going to be called Halloween Right Before It Ends, and it's going to be the 4 years that takes place between Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. It'll be a Peacock original, 12 seasons. They'll get to the bottom of all of it.
I love it.
Michael
will
won't be in
say-
any of it, but
I will say to your point, Alex, of that line she says about no fear, whatever that is. I mean, you kind of see that, to bring this to the end, when Michael's in the house and he just killed Corey, and you just see, like, in the background, she just casually walks by. Like, she knows what's about to happen, and she's like, here I am, Michael, come find me. And just, instead of like hiding and
Right.
being scared, she just walks by so that he does see her to come find her. So I guess, I don't know.
No, that transformation was readily apparent to me too, and I think that bit worked really well for me. That whole scene in the house with all of it, especially with what Corey did, because then you actually got the scene of it's like, well, what truly brings Laurie fear now, which is her granddaughter not approving of her anymore, right? Like, her granddaughter gets incredibly upset. And she does literally the same Halloween cower by the stairs. She's like, no, no. And I was like, look, you're getting upset by she literally could have walked in 2 minutes earlier and would have known this. I hated that kid in that moment. I was like, dude, you ruined it and you made this movie even worse because come on. Like, she couldn't have just stood up and been like, or no, the minute that he stabs himself in the neck, she's just like, well, awesome, and walks into the other room like, check the fingerprints. But it felt like every moment that we got that was really cool, or like, ooh, this is going to turn into something, we got another moment on top of it that just kind of threw it out the door, and it was a huge bummer. And that granddaughter is Allison, so Andi Matichak as well. Let's talk about her for just a little bit. I thought she did a great job. I loved her in the other two movies. I thought she was a great pick for this character, and I really liked her in this movie, of just, again, with the information that we had of like, okay, she's clearly taken her life in a direction she wants to go. She's not really afraid of anything. But then the minute, she's working at the hospital too, which was cool. That part I think made sense for the time jump as well, because they're like, let's give her a job. Let's make all the kids adults now so they can do stuff. I got that. But then the minute that it was like, she's just immediately goo goo gaga over this guy.
So quick. But
it was like a Hallmark movie, how quickly she falls in love with him. I'm like, what is this?
I wonder if a piece of that comes from, we talked about this, the ending of Halloween Kills, right? No one on God's green earth could survive what Michael went through. And we had all said, well, maybe this is them kind of leaning into the supernatural element of Michael Myers, which they hadn't done in the last two movies, really. And it'd been a while. I haven't seen a lot of the older ones. But I feel like they leaned into the supernatural stuff hard in this movie. And I feel like maybe that ending was them saying, hey, this is what's coming, which I certainly wasn't expecting. But like, you've got the whole I thought it was him reviewing Corey's life and being like, we'll let you live. But it was like him transferring his consciousness, it was him doing something to where now he's like Michael Myers I kept calling him his ward, his ward. But like, that piece was very supernatural. But then I also thought the relationship with her and Corey was very supernatural in the sense of, and the other nurse teases it around, what if Laurie fell in love with Michael Myers? And in a weird way, she kind of did throughout these movies, right? Like, she's obsessed about him. She's constantly thinking all of that same sort of trauma type behavior has now fallen to the granddaughter, and she's following that same exact cycle. She doesn't even realize it, but it's like Laurie and Michael in younger versions. And so, again, as a concept, I thought that was really cool. They did not execute it very well in this movie, though, because I was like, just the minute that he showed up the first time with blood on his face and said something like, I don't know what's happening to me, I would have been like, I actually got to go. Like, can I call you another time? That did not make sense to me. Jalen, did you kind of feel the same way?
Yeah, I felt like I was tuning out a lot during the Corey parts, because I'm like, I'm just not invested
most of the movie.
Yeah, just not invested in his story. It just wasn't done well. And then the whole, like I said, relationship, it was just too Hallmarky for me. And I'm like, I'm not here to watch a Hallmark Christmas movie of people falling in love in 5 seconds. Like, that's not what Halloween is about. So it just took me out. There's a lot that took me out of this movie.
Maybe it all came from that scene with them on the bike with the really cool synth music. And they were like, we need to build a relationship around this because we got to keep this scene in the movie because that scene was really cool. I was like, ooh, that feels like I'm in Drive or something. Anthony, did you feel the same way about the relationship just not working?
Yeah, it was just way too soon. Like even when they went to the I guess the party or whatever when they went to the bar, and then the kid's mom was there, and starts yelling at him, and then he ends up leaving. Right before he gets thrown over the overpass and somehow doesn't break his back, but whatever. Yeah, and then like she goes outside to talk to him, and they're arguing and this and that, and I'm not a project you can fix and all that. And then she was just like way too emotional, and I'm like, didn't y'all meet like 3 days ago? Yeah. And also, how did the fact that he works at this scrapyard as a mechanic or whatever, and she goes, oh yeah, my car's rattling, and then he immediately knows that it's somehow the exhaust pipe. Oh yeah, it's just a bracket. It's a 5-minute fix. My guy, there's a lot of pieces in cars that can rattle. Like, what? How do you know exactly what it is? Like, it was just everything seemed way too convenient. And for a movie like this, I mean, I get it. It's the end. But one thing that I need to get off my chest about David Gordon Green, is that the director? Yep. He needs to learn how to foreshadow things a little bit more subtle than he does. He showed the radio station. He showed 2 in the car and on the radio in the scrapyard. He showed, the 99.7, whatever it was. Yep. He showed a billboard of it. They showed multiple views of the radio tower. Yep. And I was like, oh, well, something's going to happen with this. The corkscrew. There was no reason when the nurse and then the doctor were at the doctor's house, and you knew then that she was going to get the promotion because she's a hooker. And like, there's no reason at all that they had to just zoom in on the corkscrew. Like, literally, I watched it and I go, well, somebody's about to get killed with a corkscrew. And then 30 seconds later, they kept showing the scrap metal, the dumpster, the grinder, whatever you want to call it. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. So at one point, Michael's going to end up in there. Like, I literally could see it all coming. And I even guessed when you saw, I think it was Corey, because he killed the homeless guy, right?
Yes.
He falls at the bottom, and then, oh, that's what it is. He falls to the bottom, and then he gets dragged in by Michael.
Yep.
And then he gets let go, which, okay.
Yeah, and then
somehow Michael is able to crawl through that grate and then pull him back through the grate and then hide back where he's stuck and can't reach him and then lets him go. It didn't make sense.
Yeah, when he looked into his soul.
That's right.
And then he goes out and then he kills the homeless guy. And then he sees Allison again and is like, I killed a guy.
Yeah. And she's like, okay.
Fine with it. Like, my man, what? And I don't know. Before we get too far, I see in the comments over here, Maya asked if Michael Myers runs. And the answer is no. No, I can't tell you. Do any of them run? Jason doesn't run. Just Freddy?
Well, Michael, he ran in the Rob Zombie movie, at least in the first one.
Easy.
No, it doesn't.
Easy.
That's why I hate it. I'm pretty.
They don't count in this storyline.
But I think that's the only one he runs in is the Rob Zombie version.
Okay. Yeah, I've never seen him run. I've never seen Jason run. I don't think Freddy.
Dude, they're gonna get there. They'll get.
Yeah. They're like they're water. They're the path of least resistance. They know where you're going before you know where you're going.
Yeah, they do, right? They always show up way ahead of you, and you're like, what
just walk through walls and gates and whatever. But yeah, I mean the foreshadowing, like I said, I could see all of it coming. And at one point, I literally thought, I go, oh, Corey's going to be the next Michael Myers. And then I thought it was going to end with somehow, the evil within Michael is somehow transferred from person to person, like a, demon, spirit, poltergeist, whatever. And then
again, they don't ever elaborate on it. It's a cool concept. I think it's something that I liked that. I was like, ooh, the idea. I mean, he did a good job too, David Gordon Green, of really setting he lays things on thick. We'll say it that way, because he's clearly doing that with the foreshadowing, but he also did that with just the rotting of the town, which I really liked. Like any scene with people in the town, they were always being mean to each other. They're talking about this place is deteriorating, or these kids are fighting. Those like I liked that, but again, it felt so meandering. It was like, okay, but like, where's the background on this? Like, are we going to figure out why? Is anyone going to tell us how Michael can do the thing that he does? You'd think if this is the last movie that they'd reveal something like, oh, some shaman blessed him 100 years ago or something. Like, whatever it would have been better than us just having to guess on our own. And I was in the same boat as you. I don't remember when the moment was, but I was like, oh, so he's going to be the new Michael Myers. Like, we've got I think it probably was the eye moment. I'm like, okay. He's like, letting him go. No, I actually got screwed over in that one, because I was watching it and I'm like, okay, so he sees all the bad that this kid's been through and cuts him a break. And I was like, I was like, okay, like I like that. Again, as a concept, I was like, I like that, but that just doesn't seem like
but
Michael.
Michael doesn't care.
And that's why I was like, maybe it's because he's like at the point of death. Because I was like, okay, maybe that saves Halloween Kills a little bit, because the townspeople did their job. Like, he's about to die. They just didn't get to see it. But then as it went on, he started killing people. And I was like, wait, so it's not that he got away, but then he becomes the killer. And I was like, oh, maybe he like transferred his consciousness into him. But I'm like, but that just
because as soon as he got away, that's when he killed the homeless guy.
Yeah, and he stabs him, and then what does he do?
That seemed at least more self-defense than
exactly. But you could tell when he did that he just had that look. And I liked that bit too, where Laurie was like, I know something is off with this kid. And that scene where he was standing right by the bush like Michael did. And I was just like I was like, Laurie, you need to just kill this kid like now. We need to end this now. But yeah, so it just felt like so many opportunities for really awesome things that just didn't really pan out in that sense. And I'm trying to think of, there was another great scene. I loved seeing Kyle, is it Kyle Richards? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was cool to see. She's now the cool bartender. I did love seeing that she was hanging out with Laurie too, because I figured, I guess if you're in the same town as your babysitter that you grew up with, sort of thing, like you guys would hang out in the future. I liked that touch. But that whole bar situation was strange. Like, okay, so your kid dies and you don't just, and it's in the same town where Michael Myers was. You don't immediately just leave. And
no one can move,
right? Like, and they have a big house. They make a killing on that. I guess they couldn't because it was
still
condemned in a sense, right? Someone died in the house, so
and
maybe that's why. Somehow. But they're both hanging out at the bar, and the husband's at the bar, the wife's at the bar, and the husband's like, "Yeah, I remember seeing that kid too, and he had evil in his eyes." And I'm like, "Cool, man, awesome." But again,
then why'd you hire him as your babysitter?
Yeah, like, oh, this guy's got more clarity. He was drinking like a Busch Light or something like that. I was just like, man, this guy is hurting. He's hurting bad. I'm trying to think of any other big moments that were kind of. Oh, I did find it funny that I felt really bad for Corey because his home life was terrible. His mom was psycho. But I liked his, like, I don't think it was his dad, but his father figure where he rides in
or something. Uncle, maybe, I don't know.
He comes in, guy's like, "You're late, get to work," and then he goes, "Hey, I need to talk to you. I bought you this bike," and I'm like, "Wait, what? Right. Maybe you'll get to work on time." And I was like, but again, sweet gesture. I love that every time his mom was mean to him, the guy was like, "I hope you find love." I think that was the last thing he said to him. I'm like, dude, no, man, he is not going to find love. He's probably going to end up killing you, is what I thought, and he basically did.
He got him killed.
Let's talk. I want to talk about that because I think, and we'll see if you guys agree, that might have been the best scene for kills in the movie.
That was like the only kills.
That should have been what it was called. Halloween only a few kills. Yes, we got some band geeks who have been beating up and picking on this kid, Corey, and I love that it was band geeks because I'm like, these are tough kids, and they pushed him over the edge. Literally and figuratively, and we get to this bit where they show up at the scrapyard, and he's full on Michael Myers. He's got his own work uniform. I loved the scene where he fires up the and that was foreshadowing, where he fires up the whatever you call it, the fire machine, the
blowtorch,
the blowtorch. Thank you. Yes, and that scene was intense where he just holds the blowtorch on the kid's mouth. I was like, holy cow. But by far, that kid thinking that he could pick off Michael Myers, and at that point, that kid was Michael Myers. But you think he could pick him off at birds with a gun? And then that other guy's like, wait, no. And then stands up to like get out of the way and shot right. Ugh. Insane. So insane.
Because that was his dad, right?
Dad, uncle, it was something.
Well, I'm pretty sure it was his dad because it was the guy who ran the scrapyard. That was his boss. I'm pretty sure that was his dad.
I just don't. The way that they made it seem like was that he wasn't like a father, because he never said like I love you. He never said, oh, he never called him son. But it was always like he was like the side guy from the mom, is what I took. It was like the mom's boyfriend or something.
Or I mean, stepdad, yeah, but it was.
Or
I mean, it was at least the same guy, yeah. So,
yeah.
I'll say this is probably just if there is a favorite moment, this is probably my favorite moment of him killing all these kids, because I'm like, oh, these kids, they gotta go. Clearly, I hate children because I'm excited when they all die in this movie. But I was here for them all getting killed off. But before that, I don't know. I did not like the fight of him taking Michael's mask. I did not like that.
Like fighting your grandpa for a war medal. That's like,
it didn't look good. Like, it made Michael look really weak, which maybe that was the point. But I'm like, that's not the Michael we know. Like, Michael doesn't get overpowered by just some kid and then gets his mask taken and is just like, okay, cool, I'll get it back later. But
especially after he powered up too. Do you remember? I'd love to hear what you guys thought about that scene where he's got the cop, because Allison is dating like a 35-year-old cop.
I'm like, this dude is.
The minute he pulled up and walked up to the car and was like something like, we going on a date or something, I was like, what happened during this 4 years? Because some stuff went down and I do not want to know about it. But yeah, he like takes him into Michael and Michael's stabbing him, and then Michael gets like the shivers and is like basically like powering up from the kill. And I was like, is he like, that's how he recharges, is by killing? But then the kid literally fights him and takes the mask afterwards. Yeah. I'm like, I thought you'd have been stronger, but that did make sense.
Well, because he also killed the doctor and the nurse too, or he like helped kill them. So like
he killed the nurse. Corey killed the doctor.
Okay, yeah. So
because he killed the doctor outside, and then the nurse ran up and she closed the door, and then he just stood there smiling. He took off the like scarecrow mask,
right.
and then 7'8" Michael stepped out of the bathroom and then just stuck her.
I mean, I guess that kill was kind of cool too. How he just like stabs her and she's stuck to the wall.
I pictured funny, Michael saying, "This is how you do it," as he like puts it in the wall, because that kid's like just hitting the guy over the head with something, and Michael's got a little bit of art to it. Like he's
every like as soon as that happened, I was just waiting for like when he led the cop into the storm drain. I was just waiting to hear, I got another one for you, Daddy. Like I was just waiting for him to call him Daddy throughout the rest of the movie, and like I'm picturing him like standing outside the glass window watching him kill the nurse. Like, get her, Dad, get her. Like,
that's my dad.
I mean, if they were gonna have them like team up, well then have them team up. Like don't just have them team up for one kill and then that's it. Like, okay, if you want it to be a team up movie.
God, I would have loved to see, you know, in shooter movies like Bad Boys, when the two of them stand back to back and they've got their guns. And Alex, Bad Boys 2 at the beginning, when they're standing back to back with their guns and they're spinning around.
Yeah,
I would have loved to see that with Corey and Michael. Just like,
oh yeah. I mean, you could have had some like, I'm trying to think of just those movies like a King Arthur type, just like a slow-mo where they're fighting through people and Michael just slices a throat and then Corey comes underneath and stabs some other guy. And they're going at like that to rock music. That would have been so good. Or no, they would have done Don't Fear the Reaper like they did at the credits. Like, can you imagine? Burner, and they just start stabbing people. Oh, that would have been great. Yeah, like
Guy Ritchie, where you at, buddy? Where you at?
Right.
Again, they missed out on a golden opportunity for that, because that would have been even scarier too. If that have been like the first movie and it's just called Halloween, but you don't see Michael until like that scene, and the whole movie you're following some other person who you think is like, oh, they're like a copycat killer, but in reality they've been working with Michael the entire time. Like that would have been
that would have been a cool trilogy.
That would've been a
I would
cool
have
twist.
enjoyed that.
It's going to
But-
be 3 years before somebody else does this.
Yeah, there's no question they're going to do another one. It's just, what is it going to be about? And I wouldn't even be surprised if Corey's the Michael in the next one. He survived from this because you know how Michael always is. Michael for sure did not survive. I would be upset if we see Michael again, just because it was so finite in the way that they showed.
I would honestly see, now I'm like doing it in my head where I want Guy Ritchie to do it. It's got to be in London. Jason Statham is for sure going to be in it. Charlie Hunnam is going to be Michael. Like, they're not going to wear a mask. It's just
Yeah, there's no masks anymore.
they're just always leaning against brick walls with cigarettes. I mean, it's just
Jack the Ripper's in it as well.
yeah.
Yes.
Michael,
you just read
Michael
about
versus
him
Jack
in-
the Ripper.
I mean, oh God, who do we
Telling
need
you,
to talk
we're
to?
giving Hollywood franchises at this point. This is free real estate, guys.
I mean,
Come on.
honestly, if they read the script of this movie and said yes, then I mean they got to be on board with what we're throwing at them.
I'm telling you, like
Yeah.
what some of these things was like, what is going through your head? I will say too, to get to it, I kind of liked the relationship that she ends up having with the police officer. What's his Frank? It
Yeah.
Coach Yost.
yeah, very cheesy, but also kind of cute. Like I the minute that he said, "I'm gonna take you to the cherry blossoms," I was like, "Well, Lori's dying.
Yeah,
She's dead." And so I was kind of happy that she got out of it. But yeah, she's like, she did the classic like Western or old person line of, "What was that you were saying about those cherry blossoms?" Like,
yeah.
oh, you mean the thing you mentioned 30 minutes ago in the movie? Yeah, no, we remember. Don't worry about us. Speaking of the person that we've barely talked about in this movie, we'll talk about the main character, Laurie Strode. So, Anthony, we'll start with you on this one. Do you think, and I probably already know the answer, but maybe elaborate a little bit on if this is the justice ending that Laurie deserves for this franchise, the way that it ended? Are you pleased with how she ended up?
Yes and no. Before I get too far into that, I don't want to forget to mention that the actor that played the original Mike Myers, Nick Castle, was the flasher at the bar. Remember, they were standing there, and then there was a guy that it was his Halloween costume, but he was playing a flasher.
Yeah, yes.
Nick-
Okay.
he
He looked
was-
like it. I was like, this guy
Yeah.
looks really familiar.
Yeah, he was the original Mike Myers in the
Oh, that's
Wow.
cool.
original one. So I thought that was cool that he was in there. But no, I wish somebody out there with some skill in editing could edit the ending of this movie onto the ending of Halloween, the sequel, the 2018. Halloween Kills doesn't need to happen. I think this could have been one movie. I don't think it needed to be a full trilogy. I understand why they do it now, for money, for whatever. But I think it should have ended with both of them going into the shredder.
Chipper.
Yeah,
The wood
shredder
chipper.
chipper.
Ooh, boo.
I think it should have ended with the two of them struggling in a fight, and then she realized, the only way to end this is I have to take it in my own hands and pull him into it with her.
Yeah.
That's how I would have liked to see it end. But I mean, that's a little grim.
No, but see that
on
that
it,
plays into all of it, because they could still have all the things they wanted from this trilogy, right? Because the whole idea, according to them, was like this. For the first movie was how the trauma affected Laurie, how the trauma bled into her family. The second one was how that trauma affected the town. And then the third one is how that trauma mutates and spreads to others. So you could have them both die in the first movie. You could introduce Corey in the first movie as well. And then you could have the second movie have Michael Myers is not even in the movie at all. And it's him in the Michael Myers mask doing the killings. And you're like, this doesn't make sense. Like, Michael's supernatural. And it's revealed at the end, okay, it was this kid all along. That would be pretty cool. And you're having the granddaughter is now the new Laurie Strode. And then you'd have a third movie where I don't even know what they could come up with. Maybe Michael comes back. Whatever it is, you could pull it off the way that you said it. It would have played out way better.
Yeah. And there was just a lot of just weird things in this movie. I don't know about you guys. I don't have my grandma in my cell phone as her first name.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
And I literally saw that. I go, really? Like your grandma that you've been living with, that's been raising you and helping you for the past 4 years, her name in your phone is Lori? Like, really?
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I noticed, and I don't know why it bugs me so much about like cell phone usage in movies, but when she, Corey was like, hey, meet me at the diner at 9:00. And then she texted him 4 times. 1, he had an Android, so red flag. She should have bounced at that point. 2, I guess that was the first time she had ever texted him because they were the only 4 text messages were from Allison that night saying, I'm at the diner. Where are you? Is everything okay? And then something else.
Yeah.
Just to, again, show you, I guess they haven't been together that long if they've never even texted each other.
Yeah, well, and that tags onto the scene where he's literally eating dinner. I don't care who you are. He is eating dinner mid-chomp with his family and stops everything he's doing and just immediately goes down to his phone. And his mom's like, what are you doing? And he doesn't even respond. And he's just talking with her. And he says, I don't have a costume. I'm like, is your brain that small that you like immediately forgot what you're doing to say, I don't have a costume? Like, that could have waited 5 minutes for you to finish your meal. And his mom immediately gets it. It's like, dude, you're the reason she's been so upset about all this stuff. Like, that kid just screw loose.
Was that before or after his mom kissed him on the mouth?
Yeah.
Because that happened at one point, and I go, hey, weird.
It's probably at the same time, but yes. I thought no, what'd she do? She slapped him in the face and then said, I love you, kissed him on the mouth, and walked off. And I was like, man, this kid, I was like, makes sense that he's Michael. Like, this kid is just, he's not in a good way.
I mean, if this was in Alabama, it'd make even more sense.
But it's not. It's in the smack dab middle of Illinois.
Yeah.
That relationship, it kind of reminded me of Carrie. Like, Carrie's relationship with her mom.
Yeah.
Is how I, took it as that, just not a great mom. And then you get that revenge on her.
Yeah, and that was we didn't even get to see it though. We only get to see a piece of it. But man, I imagine she was probably terrified just because.
I wonder because he had Michael's mask at that point, right?
Yeah, he was wearing the mask. She probably thought it was Michael Myers.
Yeah, so she probably didn't even know it was her own son killing her. But
so crazy. I mean, at that point though, it doesn't matter. Like, if that's the last thing you see, it was Michael Myers, and that's just a terrifying thought. That like in the safety of your own home, she's probably thinking, "What did I even do? Like, why is he targeting me?" Like, you don't even know the half of it, ma'am.
I don't know.
You do not want to know who's underneath that mask.
Yeah.
We've got a couple comments on here. Late Night Alum saying not going to be seeing it in theaters. May watch it on Peacock. Smart choice. It's okay. You do not have to go see that in theaters. And then Maya says, who do you think will win a fight? Michael Myers or Slasher Winnie? Honestly, Maya, the jury's still out on Slasher Winnie. We haven't seen them in action yet. So my money would be on Michael, but you never know. What about you guys?
I'm going to have to see Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey before I make that final assessment.
I don't know. Slasher Winnie does have Slasher Piglet with him. So
does Michael have Corey, or is it just Michael?
Yeah.
Is this a tag team? You know what we need? Alex, did you ever play Def Jam Fight for New York?
I did, yes.
Yeah. We need that, but with all the serial killers.
Right, like a celebrity death match. That actually, it's kind of like Dead by Daylight, but it would be kind of in a ring. That would be great. That's awesome.
I don't know. Can we add in the Killer Grinch too?
Oh yeah, because that's coming.
And that might have been my favorite part of the movie. Is there was a trailer for Violent Night, and so I got to see it on the big screen. That movie looks really cool.
That's the type of movie that you could do a Halloween movie like that, because they really, like Santa Claus. Spoiler alert! It isn't real, but Connor, I hope you're asleep and can't hear me.
He comes running downstairs. Right. What?
If my camera goes flying, you'll know what happened. Because you have, he just appears at the end of the or at the bottom of the chimney, and then like he's just kind of bouncing around the house. Like you could do that with Michael Myers and the
Right.
Yeah.
He's the Shape. He can move. They did that. I like that too. There was a bit where it was either the granddaughter or Lori was saying something about a shape, and I was like, oop, it's the
I
Shape.
think
Like,
that
Yeah.
was Lori, like
during
writing that in.
yeah,
her
right in the book.
memoir.
Yeah. I
She
think it
was
was in
like-
the book at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she also alluded in the book too to the suicide bit, which worked out really well for me because I heard her talk. Like when she mentioned that, I was like, oh no, like that's probably what she's gonna do now. And then when she's has the drink and she's got the pistol, I was just like, oh man. And then the door opens and she's like, you really think I'd kill myself? And I was just like, let's go. Fires off 2 shots in him. He falls down the bank. That was so good. But then I was like, wait, how is he still alive? This what is he at this point? 25-year-old kid.
And bleeding from right here.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
got shot in the heart, 100%. And he still has the energy to stab himself in the neck. Like, and not even that, but he's still alive when Michael showed up.
Yeah. Michael
Well,
had
yeah,
to like
it was-
snap his neck or whatever.
Yeah.
to,
That
like,
was the
finish him off.
classic the killer's not dead, last breath comes out of nowhere.
yeah.
Yeah, if only
I-
Allison had stayed around to see that.
Yeah,
She
I
somehow
want
figured it out when she saw the tower on fire.
Yeah, oh, the tower's on
Like-
fire. I guess my grandma must be in trouble.
to. She heard it on the radio.
Yeah, right.
Another thing, it took the police way too long to show up for a suicide call, and why does she have a lit jack-o'-lantern in her just upstairs?
I
guest
was like,
room?
is that gonna get a little smoky in that room?
Yeah, I'm like,
Seems
that
terrible.
seems like a weird place for a lit jacket. Like, I don't have any lit jack-o'-lanterns in my house. And
No.
she's like, and just sitting next to another pumpkin. I'm like, what kind of room is this?
She doesn't care anymore. She's beyond that.
Yeah.
But yes, Michael knows. Well, no, okay. I was gonna say Michael knows where she lives, but there's the scene where she's walking in and Michael's out by the house. She should have sensed him at that point, but she doesn't. And so we get this big scene at the end, which you're talking about a little bit earlier, Jalen, which did have. I loved that bit where she just quickly walked by because I was like, that's literally what Michael does, and I was
Yeah.
like, she's getting her revenge, and that I wasn't. I wish there would have been more to this and maybe had been a little bit better. But
That's
if
how they
this-
promoted the movie. Like they promoted this movie like it's a big Lori versus Michael showdown, and then it's
Yeah.
like 5 minutes.
And
Like,
there was, I don't
that's
remember,
why-
it was on Peacock. They had an ad for the movie and they showed that entire scene in the ad. They moved different pieces of it around, but they showed her putting him on the counter. They showed her pulling the fridge onto him, and they showed her cutting his, like all that, but they just flip-flopped it all so you couldn't tell. But I'd seen the movie, so I was like, they're spoiling all of this in the ending. But I was proud of her because, okay, so she's got a knife in one hand pinned, a knife in the other hand pinned. We get a fridge on top of the guy so he can't move. And so then she slits his throat. But then he rips his hand out of the knife and goes
That
to
part was so
choke,
gross.
choke her out. Yeah, I was like,
Seeing his hand like split in half, I'm like, ugh.
And
That
how
was
that
gross.
was the hand that was choking her out.
Yeah, like
Right,
how
and
can
that
he
was also
grip
the one
with
that got both of those fingers cut off. So like, and so then of course the granddaughter shows up exactly at that perfect moment, and she's like, "I'm not letting you go out this way." But I love that though because she's like, "Do it, just do it," just like
Yeah.
she did in the last movie where she was like, "Just kill me." Like
Yeah.
he's a coward. He does not know how to kill the Strodes. But she cuts off his. She didn't cut off his hand, but she basically, I guess, sliced his hand. And
So
so
he
he
bleeds out
drops
Sliced
quicker.
his-
I don't
his
know.
wrist.
And
How
then
he
and then
wasn't dead already from the throat slit. That was a lot of blood.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
but
know.
hey, again, last one. We need to make sure this guy is dead. So she should have slit the other wrist too, cut off his legs, cut off his head. But even better and smartly by the granddaughter, they're like, no, we're doing this the right way. And I love that the guy, what he says, I loved that line. He's like, "Sir, we was it
This
like,
isn't the right way to do it. or
yeah, oh
something
yeah."
like
He
that.
says this isn't the right way to do it, and then that guy who's not been in the movie at all comes out.
Just
cowboy
pulls
hat from
up.
his car. He goes, "Tonight it is."
I would
And
have
I was-
loved if he just showed up on a horse.
He
Like
was one step
literally,
away from that.
he just from in between the houses just comes flying in with his cowboy hat on.
They show like a wide shot, and it's just a bunch of fences, and he's just like jumping
Jumping
them all
over.
as he gets closer to the screen. Just not tonight it isn't. And then they,
Wearing a Rick Grimes costume.
Yeah, but
Oh.
I won't lie that I did fist pump at that moment because I was like, we're ending him right now. And so they parade suddenly. I guess I don't know if it was
Yeah, how the
through,
town knew that they
what
were
was that-
taking
what's
him
that-
to the junkyard.
what's that app? Is it Nextdoor?
Yeah,
Yeah,
next
that's
door
what
neighbor
it
app.
was.
They have gone to the next door app.
We're
I think
killing
something's
Michael
going-
Myers tonight. Come on down. For
If
all the
next
police
door doesn't
respect.
use
Lori,
that
Lori
movie,
posted right before
Yeah.
she slit his throat. She's like,
I know,
"It's-
guys. I know I've made a lot of false calls on the site over the years about Michael, but this is a real one. You need to come down. We're ending him.
maybe her Be Real notification popped up, and then she took a picture of her, and then it was like all the cops in the street with Michael on the hood, and then everyone's like, "Oh, damn!" And then they all went down there. Weirdest parade I've ever seen in my life. Such a
But
weird
hey, for
parade.
Haddonfield, it's not that far off. And so, yeah, we actually get to watch Michael Myers get crushed in a scrap metal crusher, which was kind of wild. So, like, bends his body in half, cracks his skull, twists him around. Did they do the job, Jalen? Do we think?
Well, I mean, it looked like it. I don't know how you come back from that, but I don't know. But I was just thinking, this is where he murdered those kids. So are there just like dead kid bodies
That's what Les said too. She was
laying
like,
around
"You're
this
right.
junk
aren't the
field?"
dead kids just in the middle of the street? Because like you had the one gal who, and it was Corey that killed her. It's crushed her
Yeah.
head under the truck, and then
Yeah.
you had the jock right next to her with the mouth burnt off, and then you had the other gal that was like caught up in the fence.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the kid in the car. So I'm
Yeah,
like,
which-
are they just dead bodies in the town?
just
like,
stepped over 'em.
okay.
maybe they were like, throw him in there first to grease that thing up. Do it quick.
I don't know.
Man, that's a great. I did not think of that, and that I'm about to have to bump my score down because there's a lot of things you guys are teaching me about this that I did not realize.
Yeah, I did not think that you were gonna like this movie more at the end of this conversation.
Yeah, I definitely don't.
And
If
you know what?
anything-
I don't think he's dead because I think the scientist from the most recent Jurassic Park movie got his DNA and he's cloning him right now in a
So we have a Michael Myers dinosaur on our hands.
yeah.
Or I could
Wow.
see somehow Michael does some weird voodoo and that was Corey that they threw in the chipper instead. And Michael, I don't know. I don't know what they did with Corey's body. They just left him
Yeah,
in
he's just
their
hanging out in
house
the
too.
hallway.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like I want to believe because I mean, even half of me is like, well, did you get the remains from the scrap piece? Because
Right?
if there's no remains, there's no body, and you know what that means with Michael.
I mean, is
But-
it going to be like H2O where it made you believe that she killed the wrong person, that it wasn't actually Michael Myers that she killed?
Yeah, that was the one where he switched
Yeah, he like switched.
clothes with the guy in the ambulance, right?
Yeah, yeah. But she doesn't know that and like chops his head off, but it wasn't actual Michael Myers. Like, what if Michael made Lori believe that he snapped Corey's neck, but he didn't, and gave Corey his mask again, and that's who she killed instead of actual Michael? Who
Oh,
knows?
Yeah,
Who
there's a lot of what
knows?
ifs on.
I'm
this.
trying to, come up with some better ending.
I just
Wait,
need
are you saying you want another Halloween movie? You're trying to come
No,
up with
I
a sequel?
don't. I don't.
I need to know what Michael's been doing every day that isn't Halloween. What is he eating?
For 4 years.
Living in
They
the
didn't even show like
sewers.
any bones of anything in that sewer. He's just
I
feeding
mean,
off.
did they
of,
show a rat? Maybe he's just eating the rats that.
That'll be in the show on
It's
Peacock.
probably going to be in the special features, or it's going to be in the more fun edition that comes to theaters in 2 months. The more kills
Just in
edition.
time
is
for
what we'll-
Christmas
Yeah, just in time for Christmas.
to ruin this holiday for you two.
Yeah. I don't know. I personally, my hope is that this is the end. This
Mhm.
truly is the end.
Jamie Lee Curtis has said that she's done.
Yeah. And I would think as Lori at this point in time, she did her job. She
Yeah.
she decommissioned the demon and she is happy to ride off into the sunset and enjoy. I did like too that he brought over all those vegetables and was basically like, I grow my own vegetables. That's why I don't buy them at the store. And in a very polite way of saying it, because I hate that she's like, you don't need vegetables and like throws a can at his face.
Right, because that's the healthiest version of vegetables you can eat.
Right. Yeah. Mind boggling. A couple other comments here. I see. So Late Night said, I think Pearl might give them a run for money. I am dying to see Pearl. I've heard that movie is fantastic and a very great slasher film. So hoping for that. Brian says Krampus. That's the sequel we need, is another Krampus movie, because that was a really fun movie. That was pretty spooky. And yeah, diet consists of air and water. Yeah, exactly. It's just, this is, yeah. Okay. Jalen, we'll start with you. Any final thoughts on this final Halloween movie?
I wish I didn't watch it. I watched it down in our basement, and our cat came down, and you knew it was a bad movie when the cat looked at the TV and just instantly fell asleep. He's like, this isn't anything. So if the cat doesn't like it, you know it's not a good movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad I watched it on Peacock. I didn't have to pay for it. We don't pay for Peacock, and somehow it still worked. I don't know.
Wow. Oh, you have the free version?
Yeah. Well, I think so.
Were there any ads at the beginning or the end?
There's an ad at the beginning.
Maybe that's what they're doing. Man, I'm
pretty sure we don't pay for Peacock.
I was about to say, if you do, it's only $5 a month. But Jalen, check your email. I actually got 6 months for free for buying my Universal Horror Nights ticket.
Oh, okay.
So like I got an email from, I think it was from Universal.
From Universal?
Yeah, and it was 6 free months.
Okay. That's a good deal.
Yeah.
Of the $4.99 version or the $9.90?
I think it's the $4.99 version. Because we started to watch, at the end of it, it suggested to watch Prom Night. And then we started to watch the original.
Is that with Brittany Snow?
No, this was that was the remake. This is the original.
Oh, the original.
Curtis,
gotcha.
Which is terrible.
We'll go with the remake.
Yeah, but so yeah, it played some ads. It played like 90 seconds of ads before.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah, but there's no ads like during the movie or anything.
Yeah.
So
that's a good deal for those of you out there listening. That because I had the free version but never really dove into it, and I paid for the $9.99 version. So but there were still ads in some TV shows with some of like the older TV shows that were on there. So I don't know how their system works, but it's weird. And so hey, take advantage of that. If you can watch a free new movie, I would say that's the best way to watch this. Right? Don't pay a cent for it. Enjoy it for what it is. Anthony, any final thoughts from you on the film?
Don't watch it. Listen to this instead, and watch Hellraiser on Hulu instead.
Ooh, nice. Or if you've got the Peacock, watch Black Phone, because that was.
Is that on Peacock now?
Yes.
Oh, I want to watch that.
Very good. Way better. So much better.
I will say it wasn't scary.
Just like thriller, like psychological.
Yeah, thriller more.
I like those. I like those.
Yeah, it's honestly felt a lot. It was like Sinister, but less scary in a good way. Like
because and my wife doesn't like pay attention to directors and all that. And we were like halfway through it. She goes, "Is this by the guy that did Sinister?" And I was like, "It is."
It definitely had some of those vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, hey, both of you, thank you so much for coming on for this. I'm really glad we could wrap up the trilogy and never talk about this movie again. But had a great time. I'm sure we'll have you guys back on soon. But for Comics and Cinema, that's going to do it for us here. I'm your host, Alex Klein, and we will see you at the movies.